So we're filming it. We're filming the gig, and then we're going to upload it to YouTube because this is the new normal. Comedians, they have to join in and they get themselves filmed and then they put it up online. This is my attempt at, growing up and joining the modern world of comedy. I'm absolutely loving it, as you can tell. I can't help but think that there's going to be a depressing moment when I put this up onto YouTube and I realise that my carefully constructed, thoughtful, considered stand-up that I've worked hard for decades on is going to be dwarfed in viewing numbers by a fat man from Northern England eating takeaway. That's the bit that's going to really stick in my throat. There are Northern England fat men just eating takeaway and loads of us are watching it. Loads of us. Like, they're not doing any jokes. There's no talent. I can't see any. There's just a guy. I seem to watch that and sometimes engineering videos. I watch videos of machinery getting nods. Yeah, it's something. I don't know. I mean, that's brutal as well, because somebody one day is going to be going, shall I watch Alun Cochrane stand-up, or I think I'm going to click on a Skoda Octavia being crushed in a big machine in Latvia. I've been a stand-up comic a long time, and I have noticed this over the years. Friday and Saturday nights are the only nights of the week that you can just say what day it is, and it will get a cheer. So if you go on and go, it's Friday night, ladies and gentlemen, people go, yay! It's Saturday night, ladies and gentlemen, yay! Wednesday, nothing, no cheer. People look alarmed on a Wednesday. They look like, oh, this is a clerical error. This is a school night. I've got to get up tomorrow. The more specific you get about what night of the week it is, the less return there is for it. You can't go on at the start of a show and go, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, it's Maundy Thursday. It's too specific. I don't really like gigging on Sunday nights, and I'll tell you why. It's not that I'm an observant Christian. I think I'm a secular atheist, but I don't like gigging on Sunday nights because I find either the gig or the travel to the gig clashes with the broadcast episode of the Antiques Roadshow on the BBC, which is a show that I really like to watch, but I'm not prepared to record, apparently. And I don't like to tell you how to live your lives, but in my marriage, the Antiques Roadshow, I think that is the only time that it's acceptable to shush each other. Because when you think about it, shushing somebody that you love and that you've agreed to spend the rest of your life with, it's horrible, isn't it? It's really minimising. Shush! Do not tell me your innermost thought that you were about to express. Horrible. However, during the moment of valuation on the Antiques Roadshow, totally acceptable, isn't it? If they're saying, and I think this plate with a painting of a horse on it is worth, and then someone barrels into the living room, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Do you need the car? I might do a big food shop. Shush! 45 quid. What was that about the car tomorrow? Yeah, of course. I just thought you were going to crash right across the bloody valuation. I say I like the Antiques Roadshow. I've got some misgivings about it. I've got mixed feelings about the guy that cries about military medals almost every week. There's a guy who gets really emotional about military medals, and there's a bit of me that thinks he's right. Like, we should be grateful for people that gave their lives so that we have the freedom to listen to my existential gloom on a Sunday evening. I was telling a friend that I really like the Antiques Roadshow, and my friend told me that he has a streaming channel where he watches the American Antiques Roadshow, and it blew my mind because I did not realise at that point that the Antiques Roadshow is one of these TV shows that's gone everywhere. Like there was a period where all the other countries watched our Top Gear, but they had their own. So Holland had a Top Gear, and it went all around the world. And Ready, Steady, Cook went all around the world until it got to China, and then they just stir-fried everything. The whole show was done in 4 minutes. They were there going, shall we make a dessert? It's not really our strong suit, but we could have a crack at it. And there's the first tension about racism. I think that's just on the right side, but maybe you guys. It's fucking early, but we'll see. We'll see. This is the nice stuff. Wait till we get to later. Anyway, So my friend told me that he watches the American Antiques Roadshow, and it blew my mind that other countries have Antiques Roadshows. I bet the Germany one is worth a watch. That was my first thought. I bet they don't have a guy that cries about military medals. That's all I'm saying. I bet they have quite a lot of modern toys on the Germany Antiques Roadshow. Do you think occasionally a guy reaches into a bag on the German Antiques Roadshow and says, I inherited this from my great-grandfather, and they go, no! No great-grandfathers! This is the Germany Antiques Roadshow. We do not do any antiques before 1945. You know the rules. Now get out the Optimus Prime still in the box. Happy with my German accent? Are we happy with it? I thought still in the box was quite a nice touch. Have you ever noticed sometimes you're looking at like an essay or a news website and it'll guess how long it's going to take you to read it? It'll say 8-minute read, and you think, oh, well, that's good because I've got 10 to 15 minutes and I could spend that 8 reading about whatever it is, you know, slugs or forced rhubarb or white privilege or whatever it is that... I don't know what you guys read about, but that's pretty much my top 3. Didn't expect to make up jokes while standing on stage at my special, but that's quite enjoyable. But sometimes you look at it and you think, oh, 12-minute read? No, that's too much. I think I'd rather watch a man from St Helens on YouTube consuming a biryani in 7 minutes. That'll do me. That'll do me. I think the next evolution of the 8-minute read will be that they'll have a guess at how long it'll take you to comprehend. I think that would be nice, wouldn't it? Might say 8-minute read, brackets, it is about the Middle East, so do expect it to take at least 20 years to comprehend. I use eBay a lot. Are you guys more Vinted people? People have moved on, haven't they? They've gone to Vinted. I'll tell you what I love about eBay. It is the roller coaster ride of clicking sellers' other items. That's what I love, because it should follow on, shouldn't it? It should be like, oh, this person is selling some Adidas Originals UK 10. They're trainers I like. When I click on sellers' other items, I wonder if they've got any other Adidas Originals trainers that I might like. And then you click on it, and it's like, oh, 1 pair of Adidas Originals UK 10 and 57 computer motherboards. I was not expecting that. Once I was looking at like a doll's house for my daughter, and you click on it, like doll's house, I wonder if they've got any other stuff for my daughter. And you click on it and you go, oh, you've got 1 doll's house and a 15th century German mace. This is brutal. Sometimes it's really odd, isn't it? All right, you've got Dick Francis novels and welding equipment. It's like the middle of Lidl, isn't it? That's what sellers' other items is on eBay. It's like the middle of Lidl. I was once on eBay, and it was somebody that had obviously done a lot of selling, and they had a cut and paste description on the description thing, and it said something like, I check every item that I sell for defects. Please get in touch before leaving negative feedback. I might have missed 1 or 2. We all make mistakes. I am only human after all. That was what this person had put. And I was looking at it thinking, well, I'm here for the Nigel Caborn extra large sweatshirt, but I'm staying for the Dostoevsky-like insight into the human condition of despair. It's a pretty unusual punchline on the comedy circuit. I don't get a lot of stuff stolen, and I think we're starting to explore why. I had a weird one on eBay once. The whole show is eBay jokes, by the way. I exercise with kettlebells. And I won a book on an auction on eBay about kettlebell training. And when I won the book, I just assumed that the guy just sold books, that he didn't care about the things that he was selling. And then as soon as I won it, I got an email off him saying, congratulations on winning that book. You're gonna love Jeff's programming. I almost emailed him back saying, would you like to be my friend? I just really like the idea of making a friend. We've already got quite a lot in common, haven't we, he and I? Just like the idea of like 10, 20 years later being at a party and somebody saying, how do you guys know each other? Did you used to work together or did you go to school together? And me going, no, we met on eBay. Hey, Steve loves the Gym 72. Could you get me a beer when you go past the... That's his name. I'm still calling him Steve loves the Gym 72. I mentioned friend from school there. I have a theory that in the modern world, if you say you've got a friend from school, that's a code, isn't it? Especially if you're at my age. Like if I said to you, this is John, my friend from school, I think that's almost like an asterisk. Like, he may express views I do not necessarily agree with. There may be some colourful language and it could get a bit spicy on immigration. That's all I'm saying. That's what friend from school means, doesn't it? And I know that because I've noticed some of my friends introduce me as Alan, their friend from school. So friends are weird, Friends are weird. I don't drink anymore, but I was having a drink with a friend of mine recently who loves Guinness. Have we got any Guinness drinkers amongst us? My friend loves Guinness, and we had a couple of Guinness on the afternoon. I had 2 Americanos with milk. This took place in South Manchester, and my friend said a thing that I think is snobby. I think Guinness drinkers have become the snobs of the drink world. It used to be red wine, didn't it, where people would sniff it and go, I'm getting berries, I'm getting a little bit of tartness, and I'd be thinking, I'm getting bored. Are you going to describe every smell that you get? We already know it's good wine. There's netting on the bottle. What are you even questioning it for? But now it seems to have become Guinness. I was drinking with this friend, and he took a sip of his Guinness, really savoured it, and he said to me, the Guinness is really good here, Alan. The landlord is a Cork man. That's what he said. Meaning the landlord is from the Cork area of Ireland, therefore he has the special Irish magical powers that can make tasty Guinness come out of the pipes, even here in South Manchester. Because that is not a matter of science and hygiene and pressure. It's innate Irishness. And I don't think this happens with other drinks. I've never been out with a friend and they've said, let's go for a lager in there. The barman is Bavarian. Let's go for a flat white in there, Alan. I believe the barista is from Brazil. Is Brazil a coffee country? I think it is. Let's go for a ploughman's lunch in there, Alan. I believe the head chef grew up near the Cheddar Gorge. I've got 300 of these. This is the rest of the show. Is that fine? I suppose there is a certain logic to it, isn't there? There is a certain logic. It does give it kudos in some instances. If somebody said to you, do you want to do some cocaine? I bought it off my flatmate who's from Colombia. You'd have every right to think that that was going to be good cocaine compared to if somebody said, do you want to do some cocaine? I bought it off my flatmate who's from Peterborough. I stopped drinking red wine even before I stopped drinking. I think red wine is one of those drinks that can make you stupid. You've got to be careful on red wine. Red wine, you could be really clever, but there's one extra glass where you become thick as shit. And it's that glass that adds a red stain to your lips and teeth. You could be a Mensa member. You add red wine mouth and people are wondering who tied your shoes up for you and helped you out the house. True story, I was once on a long-haul flight, London to Hong Kong, long flight, and during the flight, a bloke on the plane nearly died. This old guy, about 5 seats from me, they couldn't wake him back up, and the cabin crew were trying, and then they had to do the scary announcement. You know the announcement where they go, is there a doctor of medicine on the plane? Please make yourself known to the cabin crew. If there's a doctor of medicine on the plane, please make yourself known to the cabin crew. By the way, they do actually say doctor of medicine. I'm assuming they've had a few problems with overconfident doctors of philosophy coming forward in an emergency situation. Hello, I'm a doctor on the plane, philosophy. Good, philosophise this fucker back to being awake, would you? You knew this was a medical emergency. We weren't calling you forward for a chat about Schopenhauer in the middle of the flight, you pompous arsehole. Anyway, I'm half asleep on the plane and they can't wake this guy up. They do the scary announcement, is there a doctor of medicine on the plane? I'm half asleep, I wake up. This woman walks forward, she taps a stewardess on the shoulder. She says, hello, I'm a doctor on the plane. I saw red wine mouth. I thought, dead as fuck. There's no way she's bringing him back. She's forgotten everything she ever learned at medical school. She's been pounding Cabernet Sauvignon since London. I've had a cup of tea and watched a film. Give me a look at him out the way, love. Come on. Surely sober comedian trumps shit-faced doctor in this situation. Give me a couple of travel irons. Come on, here we go. I've seen ER. I know how this works. Boom, there you go. He's back in business. No invoice, don't thank me. I consider it a civic duty. Yeah. Back in business. Just repeat the funny bits if you want. There's loads of them. I'm not a doctor, but I quite often get jealous of surgeons. Just because I think it looks like they give their hands a very satisfying clean. See, a lot of other comics would not consider that a punchline, but I do. I think it must be great. There must be so much satisfaction, like proper jobs. Oh, God, look at that. Never mind the life-saving. These are spick and span. Sometimes there's not very much job satisfaction in being a comedian. Like, when it works, the bit about being a comedian that I really like is that there's no visible talent. Sometimes it's great that there's no visible talent. Like, I just plant pictures in your head and you laugh at them and then you go home going, oh, I didn't even expect to see a parrot at that moment, but he put it in my head and it was a funny picture to see a parrot and there was no visible talent. But when it doesn't work, sometimes you really wish there was a visible talent when you've spent as much time. Sometimes I think, if I'd spent the last 20 years learning and playing the cello, would there still be nights where it looked like I'd never played the cello well in my entire life? Would there still be some nights where there was people at the back thinking, why is he on last at a cello night? He's not even the best cellist we've seen this evening. There was a cellist in the middle who's only been going 3 years that was better than him. They've already been on cello at the Apollo. Maybe too niche. But this is all I can do. I can't do any other jobs. This is my only saleable skill, and sometimes I wish I had others. Sometimes I feel a bit like an oven glove. When it doesn't work, you know an oven glove, you know the cloth ones, not like the NASA silicone ones, you know, like a cloth fabric oven glove. Have you ever used them when they're wet? Because let me tell you, they do not stop the heat, which is their one job. I found this lesson out painfully recently, getting a lasagna or a sausage tray bake or something. I can't remember the food and it really doesn't matter. But it was a very hot oven tray and, unbeknownst to me, a wet oven glove. And I took the tray in my hand, in my full grip, and went, ah! And then ended up looking at the oven glove thinking, you had one job, mate. You know, that's the thing they say online, you had one job. And it made me think, you know, oven gloves, they're not even really versatile by glove standards, you know. I've got some winter cycling gloves, and they're so warm and toasty. When it's really cold, sometimes I'll just wear them as winter gloves. I once had a snowball fight with them on. There wasn't a bicycle within a mile of us, to my knowledge. Very versatile glove. And I was once gifted some very expensive, really thin, fancy leather driving gloves. And I don't play golf, but I'll bet you could use one of those as a golf glove. I'm talking about how limited the oven glove is. You know, nobody ever uses the oven glove for anything. Nobody ever says, oh, I play in goal at the football. I'll take a couple of oven gloves with me. And in fact, brutally for the oven glove, many other gloves I think would make quite good oven gloves. My son owns one of those catcher's baseball mitts. You know what I mean? And I reckon that would make a perfectly serviceable oven glove. Particularly good for jacket potatoes. I've been feeling a bit self-conscious about my appearance and my age recently. It's a weird thing, aging, isn't it? Like, I think I look all right for what I am. I'm a late 40s dad of 2, but it's up and down. It turns out I look really good for a 16-year-old darts player. That kid showing up in the news cycle put a spring in the step for many of us, didn't he? He's a fucking unit. I love him. I'm obsessed by him. He can't have a beer belly already because he's only a teenage boy, but he appears to have got one by osmosis, just by hanging around with other darts players, and eventually you become one of them. I love him. I think he went through puberty at perhaps 7, maybe 8 years old. I don't know. Nobody's ever asked that all-important question in the interview, but I think they should have. The thing I would like to know about that young darts player is how much credit for his career his school careers advisor is taking. Do you think somewhere there's a careers advisor saying, yeah, I met him when he was 15, he was already 17 stone, I saw a bracelet on one wrist, I said, have you considered darts, young man? Don't even take a leaflet, just go and start throwing the arrows and the rest will be history. I spotted it and now there he is. I love it. And I was a late developer, so I'm very jealous of anybody that got through puberty early. What a result. But even when I was at school, I remember thinking that careers advisor, I try not to call jobs scam jobs, but careers advisor. Even when I was a teenager, I remember thinking, why would I listen to you about careers? Let's have a look at the career that you've carved out for yourself. You appear to be sitting in a porter cabin in West Yorkshire giving leaflets to uninterested teenagers. Physician, heal thyself, I suspect. I think it's bullshit, and I think the modern version of careers advisor is online life coach. It seems all you really need to be an online life coach is to get photographs of like a sunset or a horizon and then get a calligraphy text and put up a pseudo-inspirational intellectual picture and caption. So they put up things like the caption, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. That's what they put up. And apparently some of us are inspired by this. Apparently some of us look at that and go, oh my God, that is so profound. Sometimes I think I can't when I should think I can. That apostrophe T is what's holding me back. I have got self-limiting beliefs and I need to take my own handbrake off and go for it. I'm not sure I could be an online life coach, even though I think I've got a nice life, but I just think I'm too literal, I'm too honest, and also I over-explain everything. So I think I'd put up, if you think you can or you think you can't, if you think you could, or you think you couldn't, if you think you might, or you think you mightn't, if you think you may, or you think you may not, if you think you would, or you think you wouldn't, if you think you ought, or you think you oughtn't, if you think you should, or you think you shouldn't, you're probably right. That's what I would put up. And then maybe just in brackets, 2-minute read, close brackets. And then maybe just a little asterisk saying, Alun Cochrane, life coach, has a working knowledge of modal auxiliary verbs. I thought that was too niche, but some grammar fans are here. Some people looking like, I hope he does some stuff on split infinitives before the end of this show. As I say, I don't like to call jobs scam jobs, but another one that I think is a bit of a piss take is dream analyst. You know, there's people that go on television purporting to be dream analysts, and they say, oh yeah, I can analyse your dreams. That's surely that's a scam, isn't it? I think we all do dream analysis at an armchair level, but I just divide them into two, wet and dry. That's really it. But apparently some of us are subdividing the dry dreams. Have you heard that some people now think that there's anxiety? That's one of the divisions of dry dreams, is that people go, oh, that's an anxiety dream. Like if you dream, I don't know, if I dream that I'm on my way to a show and the wheels fall off of the car and then I have to abandon the car and I'm running on the motorway, but then it's a really hot day and the tarmac gets really sticky and I can't get to the show. If I then tell somebody that the next day, they'll say, oh yeah, that's an anxiety dream, Alan. You're clearly worried about how your career is going. It's an anxiety dream. But I think surely there should be a category of dream that isn't necessarily anxiety. It could just be batshit, couldn't it? Like if I dream tonight that my kitchen is full of kettles, that I can't get into the kitchen because it's just full of kettles, that's the sort of weird shit that happens in dreams, isn't it? But if I say to people, oh, I dreamt last night that my kitchen was full of kettles, unlikely that somebody's going to go, that was an anxiety dream. You're concerned about how much tea you drink. I don't think they're going to do that. But we do it about more straight. My wife once dreamt that she had a homeless boyfriend. Was that an anxiety dream about her choice of husband? Is that what that was? By the way, that is how low I've set the bar as a partner, that in dreamland, where anything can happen, literally the sky is the limit. People fly in their dreams, and she dreamt that she had a homeless boyfriend. And as soon as she told me the next day, I started taking the piss. I went, oh, aim higher. Aim higher. You could have had a slightly less handsome boyfriend who was perhaps in some temporary accommodation. And as soon as I started making fun of it, she went, oh, duh, I really liked him. Here's the thing I didn't expect as I was getting older. When I was younger, I did not expect that as I got older, I would start to meet people who were younger than me or close to me in age that had done more with their time on Earth, and I would catch myself getting jealous of how much they were packing in to the same amount of time that I'd had. Has anybody had this, where you think, oh God, they're packing it in? I once met a bloke, and he was 6 months younger than me, and he'd had 4 really interesting, diverse career changes, proper zigzag career, and he had 5 kids from 3 marriages, 6 months younger than me, and I felt really beige. I kept thinking, oh my God, he's packing it into his time on Earth, isn't he? And people don't even have to be that close to me in age for me to get jealous. I was once driving and I heard on 5 Live on the radio, they said, a 16-year-old girl has been arrested in Manchester tonight on terrorism charges. And I thought, she's packing it in, isn't she? 16 arrested already on terror charges. I haven't even been questioned on any charges. She's packing it. She's going to have some stories for the dinner party tables in her 30s and 40s, isn't she? She's going to be like that. Now you mention it, Brian, I was something of a wayward teenager. Pass the hummus, I'll tell you all about it. Some of you seem tense about the hummus in that joke. I want you to know the hummus in that joke, I thought, was indicative of a middle-class dinner party from perhaps 10 or 20 years ago. I'm in no way connecting Middle Eastern food with terrorism. I want you to know that. Has it gone tense in this room? It feels like it's gone tense. I'll say it, I don't think it's the food. Oh, this is awkward, isn't it? This is really awkward. I feel like I could only blame myself. Although it does provide a neat segue into my material on the Middle East. Put your big boy trousers on, guys. Here we go. I'm only joking. I haven't got any stuff about the Middle Eastern conflict. I'm genuinely amazed at how many people have quite strident opinions about how they could fix the conflict or what should happen in the conflict from their luxury homes in Manchester, Glasgow, New York, London, miles away from an actual conflict, and, you know, no daughters that have been murdered or whatever, you know. Anyway, let's lighten up the moods. I think a mistake that we are making is thinking that it's a territorial conflict. A lot of people seem to think that it is a conflict about land. I don't. I think it's actually a conflict about different types of arrogance. I think we've got one type of arrogance, which is people saying they're the chosen people, which sounds arrogant. And then there's another type of arrogance, which is people saying that their religion will be the final religion on earth, if necessary, through violence. Anyway, on with the show. Just saying, I don't think it's a conflict about land. I think it's that. But I can appreciate you probably didn't want to think about it now. Let's lighten things up. Gender. Let's do gender. It's tricky, isn't it? It's tricky. Tricky time to do stuff about gender, and I want you to know I've never really had any jokes about men do this, women do this. I've never had any of those jokes. And I think it's partly that my dad died when I was very young, so we were brought up by my mum, so I never had a male role model in the house going, oh, women, they can't read maps, or they get lost, or they don't know anything, or they're for hoovering, or whatever it is. You know, I often think it's a male role model putting that into young people's heads, but I never got that, so I've never had any jokes about men versus women, and now it would be a lunatic time to have jokes about men versus women, because now we're in an era where some people pretend that they can't even define the word woman. I think I can, but I'm not gonna. But now that it's radioactive to have stuff about the differences between men and women, I've only gone and got some. I've got a men and women joke. I think there is quite a big difference that I've spotted that nobody else has. I think we approach a hotel stay differently. I've got a lot of female friends, I've talked to them, and I think a lady looks forward to a hotel trip, either with work or the girls, and thinks, oh, I'm away in that hotel soon. Ooh, I'm gonna have a fucking good sleep. I'm going to have a really good, and it's a luxury hotel, so hopefully they'll have those really thick drapes or blackout blinds. Oh my God, I'm going to have a lie-in, and I'll be away from these bastards that wake me up every morning. Oh God, I'm going to have such a big sleep. And I think a gentleman thinks, I'm going to wank in that room. I think it's a crucial difference. And I know there's probably ladies in here thinking, I masturbate in hotels all the time. Feel free to make yourselves known. That's not the point I'm making. Even though women do it sometimes, I just don't think you factor it in the way gentlemen do. There's men think about it on their way to the hotel. There's men that think, right, it's a 3-night trip. This will probably be a 2-wank trip, this. It might be a 3-wank trip if I have one on the final morning before breakfast, but it won't be a 0-wank trip. Even if the Wi-Fi's gone, I'll have a memory one. I'll think about someone from college or someone that I walk past at reception, but it won't be 0. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the hot potato of toxic masculinity. They said about toxic masculinity, the guy said he worries that we might label some masculine traits as toxic and then people learn not to do them, and then what society might look like a generation after that could be horrible. And he mentioned this, and it's a sad story. In 2012, some guy goes into a cinema in America with a semi-automatic weapon, just starts spraying bullets into complete strangers. On that night, 3 different young men threw themselves across the girlfriends that they were there with, launched themselves across their dates and saved the girls' lives, but died in the process. The girls lived, but the boys, they saved them. And he was saying, if that bravery, valor, heroism, protectiveness, if that gets labelled toxic, down the line, when people unlearn to do that, society could look minging. And I remember thinking that is a profound and interesting point. And if that is toxic masculinity, I'm pretty sure I haven't got it. That was my main takeaway. It's quite relieving to find out that I'm not a toxically masculine male, actually. I'm definitely not. I was recently paddleboarding on a canal with my wife, and she went near a swan, and I thought, you're on your own, love. I'm not intervening with a swan. I might intervene if it was a human that I thought I could overpower, but swans can break your arm. That's the one thing. That's the one fact we all know about swans, isn't it? You know, and I do a martial art, but I don't think I could do a grappling martial art on a swan. You couldn't choke a swan from behind because they've got such slender necks, their escapes would be brilliant, presumably. Or even whilst you're sinking in the choke, they could just turn around and peck your fucking face off. I suppose I could try and knot it like a balloon animal, but... Anyway, I got really lost in thought about that, and I'm not sure those young men got lost in thought about what strategy to take. They just launched themselves. Another interesting thing on that podcast, which is pretty targeted at blokes, it's a little bit blokey, they had an advert before the show for a device to shave men's pubic hair, but it's only for that. It's just for pubic hair shaving. And the guy said, when you're trimming down there, it's no longer good enough to just use any old shaver. You need to use a device specially for it. It's called like the Manscaped something or other. And he said, the Manscaped 3000 now comes with a 90-minute battery life. So if you really want reassurance and to treat yourself right, you've got peace of mind. Peace of mind, 90 minutes. I was listening to it thinking, how hairy are the genitals of the listenership of this podcast? Because I was a late developer, so I've never trimmed down there. I love my pubic hair. I won't get rid of it. If it's not in the bath plug hole, it's still in me. That's my rule with my pubic hair. It's like, sometimes I still look at it and just think, I'm so glad you showed up when you did. But apparently some people are trimming it in 90 minutes. Like, I've never done it, and I think I could do it in 90 minutes with a teaspoon and some TCP cream or a rusty saw and some paracetamol. I just don't see why they need it to be that long. I like women. That's what I fancy. I fancy women. But I've also got a type. I'm a MILF guy, and I think that's age appropriate for me to fancy MILFs. We've got some in. I think that is age appropriate for me. I've got friends quite close to me in age, and they objectify like 20-year-old fitness influencers on Instagram. I want you to know, I am not interested in a 20-year-old fitness influencer off Instagram. I'd have a look at her mum, but I'm not interested in her. Her mum might be 35 and in really good nick if she just got knocked up at high school and then got her life back on track. Or she might be 40 or 45, which is starting to get bang on my target zone. I would crawl across that 20-year-old fitness influencer off Instagram to get to some of the more jaded, weather-beaten, knocked around by life MILFs that we've got here amongst us. You're my bitches, MILFs. Big fan, big fan. And I like you because you're real, aren't you? You're real. You're in the room with a bit of crow's feet and low-level anger. And I love that. I find it very alluring. I'll be honest with you, I way prefer that to these online MILFs that you see nowadays having sex with their stepsons. Oh. I don't like to sound like a prude, but I think that could cause tension at a future Christmas dinner. I really do. Think about that young man's relationship with his father. Give him an Amazon voucher rather than really aggressive and spitty fellatio. Where's your sense of appropriateness, woman? Some of you are horrified by the aggressive and spitty fellatio. Me too. Me too. I don't like it. I've seen them do that and I think, oh, why would you do that? You know, it's done nothing bad to you. Stop treating it like an opposition football fan. Hashtag be kind. I say I don't like to sound like a prude. I don't think I am a prude, but I do think I might be a bit beige in the boudoir. I think I might be vanilla. Here's the thing, I still get a lot of pleasure from what seems to be basic, boring sexual positions. I get pleasure from missionary, on top, doggy. You know, they give me pleasure, so I haven't felt any need to add kinkiness or fetishism. Similarly, I've never finished an ice cream and thought, that was bloody delicious. Ideally, someone will punch me in the face any second now, which will really heighten my enjoyment of this ice cream. I've always just been happy with the ice cream. I don't know why people are sticking pain onto pleasure. I keep my pain and pleasure pretty separate. And don't all look at me like the boring shapes are boring. They're good. Missionary's a good position. If you get the right angle where you do the long strokes, missionary's a great position. And I'm tall, I can get the right angle. I've got a good hip-to-knee ratio. Sometimes me and the wife will do a bit of missionary and then we'll have a little high five afterwards. We'll say that was good, wasn't it? Didn't last ages, but we got the right angles, so the long strokes worked. No need for the pain yet, darling. That's the sort of thing I'll say afterwards, you know. I saw a documentary years ago about bondage and sadomasochism, right? And this woman was talking to the camera about when you first start to hurt your partner's nipples. Has it gone quiet in this room? Some of you are leaning forward like I'm bored of the missionary. What happens to the nipples? Got the kink and fetish night, didn't I? She said to the camera, this woman, she said, on this documentary, she said, when you first start to hurt your partner's nipples, she said, don't rush out and buy expensive nipple clamps. That's what she said. Which I like, the idea of somebody rushing out to buy expensive. In a world where we buy everything online at the click of a mouse, she thinks someone's rushing out the front door, sprinting across a dual carriageway to get to an Ann Summers. I've got a Visa card and I've got big ideas for Barry. He is not going to know what's hit those nipples tonight. She looked into the camera and she said, don't rush out and buy expensive nipple clamps. She said, a pair of household pegs will do the trick at first. That's what she said, household pegs will do the trick at first. And then you can graduate to mousetraps. That's what she said. Fair play to her, she's got a lovely turn of phrase. I would have been proud with that. And then you can graduate to mousetraps. I love her. She's kinky, but always with one eye on the housekeeping budget. She's horny and thrifty. Perverse and yet penny-wise, and I bloody approve, I really do. I'm not kinky yet, but I bloody love a bargain. I really do. I feel like I overlap with her on the Venn diagram somewhere. And now I've got a morbid fantasy that one day I'll inadvertently find myself at a kink and fetish night and some semi-stranger will be down there just sandpapering my testicles. And I'll be up at the top unmoved saying, what grit is this paper? And how much did you pay for it per metre? Because I think you could have got it cheaper as a job lot. I've got a few friends that are blue collar that could at least have got you the VAT off it. If you've overpaid for this, it's going to hurt me more than the actual vigorous sanding that you're doing. Barbara. Was it Barbara? I think it was Barbara. I'm not great with names. I mentioned my wife earlier. My wife is actually now a fully qualified High Court judge and lead prosecutor and forensic blood spatter expert. When I say fully qualified, it's more accurate to say that she listens to a lot of true crime podcasts. And she seems to think it's exactly the same thing as being fully qualified. I don't know how, but she listens to a podcast and goes immediately to expert level of whatever that podcast. Sometimes now we'll see a minute of the news and she'll just see something and she'll say, I'm not sure that's in the right evidence bag. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets thrown out of court in the next month. I've been listening to quite a lot of history podcasts. I've been travelling around the country. I've been listening to history podcasts, partly to plug in the gaps with my history knowledge, because I've got some gaps with history knowledge. And if you have gaps with your history knowledge, people who have good history knowledge can really fucking patronise you, can't you? The people that know about history, you're very patronising. Like, if you're looking at the newspaper and talking about anything, they can somehow bend it to their history knowledge. You go, oh, God, this story about Brexit's really rumbling on even now after all these years. Someone that knows about history will go, it's funny that you and The Guardian think that that's a Brexit story. I think you'll find that we've been rowing about that since the repeal of the Corn Laws. And I don't know about you, but you end up feeling thick as shit, don't you? You start thinking, oh, God, while this guy was reading about the repeal of the Corn Laws, I was looking out the window and wondering what I would name a houseboat if I owned a houseboat. I've got a slight bugbear about how we treat history, though, in the modern culture. Have you noticed this? We've got a bad habit of going back into history, and somebody that we all agreed was a good historical figure 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, people go back and apply today's standards to those figures, and they go, oh, actually, this historical figure that you think is a good person might well be a bad person because they said or thought one thing that wouldn't fit in at a dinner party today. So maybe we should cancel them, even though they've been dead for 100 years. That seems unfair to me. It's not fair to judge people of the past by the standards of today. Surely, it's quite hard to live by the standards of today. Today, I don't know if you've all noticed that. I'll bet every one of us in this room has got a viewpoint that's going to look shitty in 100 years or 50 or 4 minutes, you know, the way the culture war is changing. People do it about Winston Churchill. For my money, I think Winston Churchill, probably like any of us in this room, a flawed human being. Probably a flawed human being. But he got the biggest thing in his life right, didn't he? He got the biggest thing in his life right. However, I'm prepared to concede there's a chance that he smoked indoors in pubs, and we no longer approve of that. But I don't know how he could have seen the smoking ban coming from so far off. I think people do, and it's unfair. I heard a podcast where they said that some people accuse Winston Churchill of having been anti-Semitic, which isn't even historically accurate, by the way. But you do hear that and you think, fucking hell, if you think Churchill was iffy about the Jews for the time, wait till you hear about the other fella. That is going to blow your brains out. Because Hitler was frothing at the mouth about them, you ahistorical moron. And the thing that annoys me about this is that we never do it in the other direction, do we? People never go back into history and pick a baddie and reappraise them for having 1 or 2 good views that would fit into The Guardian. Fred West, hear me out, Fred West, for my money, was a baddie. He was a murderer, he was a sexual abuser, he buried people in the fabric of his own home. However, wasn't racist. I don't know if you know that. He wasn't. I'll say it, I still think he was a baddie. I'm going to put my hand on my heart. I still think murdering people and burying them in the fabric of your own home is worse than asking somebody at a party where they're really from. There you go, I'll say it. I think it's... But I'll say this, if we are going to reappraise baddies from the past, I think we should start with pirates. Because as soon as I say to you pirates, I bet you all immediately think of the criminality of the pirate, don't you? I bet you think of the treasure that they got through looting. I bet you think of the violence, maybe even the sexual violence. But think about it, pirates, they were very good on disability employment, weren't they, pirates? They didn't care if you had a leg that stopped at the knee and then a chunk of wood strapped to it. If you could captain the ship, you were in with those pirates. They were like, I know you've got a hook for a hand, Barry, but I also know you're a bloody good sailor. So you start with us on Monday. We'll see you at 9 sharp. Don't be late. Ship sails at 9:30. And pirates were way ahead of us to realise that some members of staff need an emotional support animal to help them get through a shift. Were they? They were like that. I know he's got a parrot on his shoulder. Just work alongside him and don't mention it or he'll cut someone's throat. He's a psycho. But we're pirates. It's not an HR issue. What is wrong with you people? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for laughing at me. I've been Alun Cochrane. Cheers. Thank you.